Welcome to the Catholic Life Coach Podcast. My name is Carla Fitz. I am a certified life coach, wife, and mom of two beautiful little girls. My hope for this podcast is to offer support and empower other Catholic women to live their most authentic life, to share life coaching tools from a Catholic perspective in order to help you live a more fulfilling life filled with peace, joy, and abundance. Let's get started. Today's episode is all about embracing the 50-50 life. If you have not heard me talk about the 50-50 life, this concept has changed my life. I have used it in some other podcasts in the past, but today I want to dive a little bit deeper into what this means, what this looks like, and also how it has shifted my life and the way that I live and how I see my circumstances, and how it can help you also shift the way that you are seeing your life and understand this concept better. So for those of you, if you have not heard this before, it explains how life is meant to have 50% positive emotions or positive circumstances, experiences, however you want to call it, and it's also supposed to have 50% negative emotions or negative experiences or circumstances, okay? So basically it's the idea that you balance life out with 50-50. The way I've explained it before is the idea that you cannot experience happiness without having experienced sadness in the past, because you need something to contrast with. And it is a way that life balances out. There are moments where things are going amazing, and then there are other moments when it's not so much, right? So if you think about it in that sense, we are meant to have a life that is filled with both positive and negative experiences and emotions. The mistake that happens is that society is constantly telling us that we need to be happy most of the time. And when we can't achieve happiness most of the time, we get frustrated with ourselves and our lives, and we become bitter and we become frustrated, and it's like, what's going on? Something is going wrong. Nothing has gone wrong. The problem is that we are not taught that life is meant to be 50-50. That nothing has gone wrong if you're having a few negative emotions today, because tomorrow will probably be better. One of the things that my coach constantly says, and I love this line, is anytime that I am down, anytime I'm frustrated or I feel defeated, I try to remind myself that I'm going to feel better tomorrow. Sometimes I know that I'm going to feel better in an hour. So if you allow yourself to process those emotions without trying to buffer, without trying to not feel them, you're able to process them a lot quicker. So sometimes it can take a few minutes. You can just sit and process that emotion. Sometimes it can just take an hour, a day. Sometimes it can take a week, depending on what you're trying to process, depending on what that emotion is. But I think there is an amazing power in acknowledging that life is meant to be 50-50. Because when you know that life is that way, that life is meant to be 50-50, you don't judge your negative 50 as much. And you don't dwell in your negative 50 as much. Life will always be 50-50, no matter your circumstances. I want to give you an example, and the example that I'm going to use is my business, because this is very present to me right now, and I am living the 50-50 life in my business, and I have also lived the 50-50 life in a job. Okay, so I'm just going to compare and contrast, right? When I was working, I had a full-time position, I was teaching, I loved my job half the time. The other half I didn't love so much. And here is what this looked like. I loved that I had a consistent paycheck. I loved my students. I loved teaching. I didn't love that I had to be there from 7 to 4 every single day, and I wasn't with my girls more. I didn't love that I had to plan a bunch and write down every single thing I wanted to do, because most of the time I would just allow myself to teach in the moment. So I would plan a lot and then sometimes not be able to follow that plan. And I hated that I wasn't able to not do that. Like that was just something we needed to do. So there is like an example of what that 50-50 looks like. In this case of my business now, I'm living a 50-50 life as well. Like it's still 50-50, just a different circumstance. So now in my business, I don't have the consistent income. That is not a month basis where I can just expect the exact same amount coming in every single month. I don't have someone guiding me on what I need to do. That part is not so pleasant. And I need to show up on social media, and sometimes that can be super uncomfortable. Now, in the positive 50 side, I get to be home with my girls 4 days a week. I get to create content that I absolutely love. And I get to work with amazing clients because I allow myself to do this work. 50-50, there are still things that are negative, things that are not so great, and then things that are amazing. And when we start to understand and I start to accept that life is meant to be 50-50, we stop living with guilt and with the need of constantly getting to where it's going to be greener. So often, I hear my clients say, I just want to get to that job. When I get that job, I will feel better. When I get that raise, I will feel better. When we move, I will feel better. And that's not the case. You have a choice now to feel better about your circumstance because here in the now, it's 50-50. And when you get to that goal, will also be 50-50. You will just have a different set of challenges and a different set of blessings. For a very long time, and this was back in 2020, prior to COVID, my husband and I were dreaming with buying a house that was spacious for our girls, that had that backyard. And you guys have heard me say this. And the reason why this was a blessing directly from God put in front of us to go and purchase. And it was an amazing moment. And it really marked my life in understanding that there isn't better than here. That goal that we have in our hearts, it's not better there than here. So prior to being in this house, we had a 2-bedroom house with a bathroom downstairs. We had 2 little girls. We were a little cramped. And I was so uncomfortable. I was like, I can't possibly be happy in this house. This house is too small. There's mice. It's driving me crazy. We don't have enough space. And I remember I wanted to buy this big house. In my terms, my time, my price, I want it now because if I get to that house, my life will no longer be 50-50. Mind that I didn't know that life was 50-50 back then. I just figured once I get to this house, I will feel better. I will act better. I will live better. And it's going to be amazing. So in that moment, the house didn't work out and I had no choice but to accept and surrender my circumstance. We couldn't afford a house at that time. There was not a house. It was not a market to be buying a house. And this was prior to COVID. So the houses were still pretty high in price. And then I remember something shifted in my mind from lack, from not enough to this is a beautiful home. We have a roof over our heads. And I am so unbelievably grateful that we have this home. And it shifted so much that the thought of there's not enough space turned into I can create more space. So then that 50-50 life changed, but it was still 50-50. The negative part of the 50 had that there were only 2 rooms and the bathroom was downstairs and going to the bathroom was kind of a pain. That it had mice, that the basement was not great and my husband was starting to work from home and it was super uncomfortable. I had a very scary basement. I remember I did not like to go downstairs and we had to do laundry in the basement. And I was always petrified to go downstairs. But on the positive note, or on the positive side of the 50, this house had a beautiful porch. We had renovated it. We put so much love into this porch. And we would sit out there with our two little girls to watch the rain pour. The other great thing is that our mortgage was so cheap. It was so cheap. It was super easy to pay. We were able to save so much money because we had that super low mortgage. And it had the most beautiful wood floors because the house was made in 1909. It was a beautiful home. And when I changed my perspective on that 50-50, my whole experience shifted. The experience was still 50-50, but I no longer fought with the negative side. I no longer shamed the negative side. I just embraced the fact that it was meant to be 50% amazing and 50% not so great. Now, when we moved to my next house, I brought that exact same thought with me. Because when we moved to this house, it was still 50-50. The girls could play around. We had a beautiful kitchen, great backyard. On the negative side, the backyard was smaller than our old house. There was so much more cleaning that I needed to do. And the mortgage was a lot higher than it was in our old house. But it was 50-50. And it was an amazing 50-50 life. Just because our life is meant to be 50-50 doesn't mean that you can't have an amazing life. I think the misunderstanding happens when we think, well, it's just 50% happy, so it's not great. No. Once you embrace that the negative 50% of your life exists, it is much easier to process, to accept, and to embrace. And it feels like your life is so much richer because you are no longer judging, you are no longer dwelling, and you are no longer fighting the negative 50% of your life. Life is meant to be 50-50. I want to end with this. The only time that you will ever experience 100% happy life is when we go to heaven. In this lifetime, we are meant to overcome the negative 50. We are meant to be grateful and to think abundantly in this 50-50. And I know, please know, that I know this isn't easy. This takes time. This takes practice. It takes me practice. I have been in life coaching for the past 2.5 years of my life, and it is a consistent practice. This is why I have a coach. Because we need to work in our mindset. We need to work on how we choose to think, what we choose to believe, and this will affect the results that we get. Sometimes we think that we need to change our circumstances in order to feel better. But I want to challenge you this week to practice changing your thinking and changing the way that you are seeing your circumstances and feel the emotions that it brings for you. What changes the result isn't changing the circumstances all the time. The main thing that changes your results is your thoughts. If you believe that this is a problem, it will be a problem. If you believe this isn't a problem, or you believe this is something that you can overcome, you will overcome it. But practice this week embracing the 50-50 life. Accept the negative and enjoy the positive. And you will be much happier. Would love to hear how it's going. So make sure to reach out in Instagram and send me a DM. I would love to know your questions and how things are going for you, what you've taken away. And I would love to hear from you. Love to hear those insights. But until next week, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week. Enjoy and embrace the 50-50 life. Thank you for joining the Catholic Life Coach podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share it with a friend and leave a review to help this channel grow and reach more and more amazing Catholic women. Also, if you are interested in having a free coaching call with me, make sure to sign up for a time that works for you. The link is in the description. I cannot wait to see you there. I hope you have an amazing rest of your week. And until next one, God bless.